for me personally, like kind of how I told you early on, I learned my identity and I wouldn't now, once I discovered that, there's no wavering. I think for me, if I'm looking at how that relates to Gateway Fellowship, what I see is, and we just know who we are, and we're not gonna shift just because, obviously systems change and, what we do as you grow, you gotta adapt to different levels of leadership, all that stuff. But we know who we are. We know what we want to do, and we're pretty set on that.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll have to think about what I'd like my nickname to be. I feel like it should be something that's like natural,
Sure.
But I've never gotten one. Except for in middle school, they called me Bug Eyes.
You can't give yourself a nickname.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but nobody's giving me one, and it makes me feel a little insecure.
I don't know that I
You're
have a
Big Joe, Guo Joe.
In Haiti, yeah.
Yeah, but you have
Joe.
one. I don't have one. I'm just Madam Joe.
In Haiti, I have a lot of names, though.
Right, and I don't have any other than...
We're gonna have to,
We'll have to,
please.
comment below and let us know what we should call Sammy.
The Silver Catholic,
The
because now
Silver
I'm...
Catholic.
I don't...
All right,
But I'm not
guys.
Catholic.
On a real note, we're here with
All right.
Chris Reynolds.
Yeah.
You're currently a pastor at Gateway Church here in San Antonio. Listen, we wanted to invite you in here, one, for us to get to know you.
Yeah.
What better place than to get to know you right here?
Right
than
in front of the camera.
In
right
front of the world.
camera,
Yes.
on podcast. Ignore that
Pressure.
thing. Just pretend it's not
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
But so here's the deal, right? So our podcast is all over the place intentionally, right? So when we arrived back from Haiti, some of the story you might not be familiar with, but I'll revisit it for our audience of 4, right? So there might be almost 4 people listening.
5 now.
I would say
My
probably
wife
5.
might watch.
Yeah. And your kids.
Might.
And your
Yeah.
kids. So, we'll bump it up to 8.
So anyways, when we came back, it's like we went from this world of being able to share our life, whether it be sermons, as a pastor myself, the call that God's given me, whether it be to audiences at conferences, youth groups, different church platforms. And then with our organization, it was bringing people abroad, right? So we started leading people through mission trips. Well, you fast forward to last year, a whole lot of things changed for us, not to mention COVID. And we're sitting around saying, what and how do we dance with this new rhythm?
Yep.
Which is some of what we brought you guys into, because I want to get to a place where
You guys.
you, Chris.
There's 2 of him.
Well, Chris is representing a church, which we'll get
there
to a
you
little
go.
bit.
Okay.
Because
I
at
get it.
some point in today, I want to just address the online church phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
I think pre-COVID, out of convenience, like sometimes when I would travel, it made sense to get on, watch one of my favorite pastors. You can watch a pastor from anywhere.
Yeah.
It made sense. Where now it's like it's become a thing.
Yeah,
right?
like a necessity.
There's entire states, like California, that haven't been able to fellowship. Where for them it was out of necessity. For others, it's just out of responsibility. Everybody's got somebody different at home that they need to care for. Some people get COVID, some people don't want to get COVID, all that type of stuff. But I seem to think that as I started off in our prayer, COVID isn't a surprise to God.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started just talking to my buddies, different pastors, different guys that were on stages in the world of Christian faith, and that being their vocation, it really swept the rug out from a lot of different people. And it was kind of like, well, what do we do now? And there was this angst almost to go back to normal, where for me, it was like, at normal, whatever normal was, there was still some complaints. There was still, a lot of prayers of saying how do we move this ship? How do we change? So who knows what God's doing? Online church seems to be a thing. So anyways, that's part of why we brought you in today.
Yeah.
But also just to introduce yourself. So why don't you give us the most important things about Chris, starting off with, maybe that you're married, kids, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm married and have kids.
Yeah, right?
And they're so cute.
Do not introduce
Wife
yourself.
and kids are so cute.
Yeah.
The cutest.
How long have you been married?
We've been married 5 years, coming up on 5 years. And so feels still brand new, but not. It's weird. So I don't know if you guys know this, but 1 month after getting married, I got into a motorcycle accident. Head on with a F-150. It's pretty scary. Thought I was gonna die. I didn't.
Well, that's good, because I'd be freaked out right now.
I would just be one of those Lazarus.
But I was casted both arms and leg. And so 1 month after being married, my wife is bathing me and helping me use the restroom. So I feel like we've been married 5 years, but it feels like 75. You know?
Yeah, that's a lot to go
you
through.
got close fast.
Yeah, and then not just that, we've had kids since. I mean, we had a honeymoon baby, waited a few months, had another baby, and I say a few months. You know.
Calista and Ayana are 10 and a half months apart.
10 and a half months apart.
So
we feel I think ours are 11 or something like that. I don't know. I don't even know.
They're
But
close.
all 3 kids, I got kids right now, 3 kids under 3 or 3 and under. And so
do you think you'll have more?
We've been there.
We want more.
Yeah. Is it one of those things where you just keep it open, it's in God's hands, or you kind of have a plan?
It's hard to say we don't want any more.
Yeah.
But 3 kids, 5 years married. My wife she's only been pregnant her whole marriage. So this year, 2021, her goal was to not be pregnant. And so
I can totally relate to that.
I do, yeah.
We had 10. We had 10. We had 6. Well, we had 7 pregnancies, but 6 kids in 10 years.
Yeah.
So I was either pregnant or nursing from 2000 to 2011.
If TikTok and stuff was around back then, I'd be sponsored by Pampers and Huggies.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
We had a lot of kids. Yeah. We had a lot of kids.
So yeah, my 3 kids. Yeah, I love it. I mean, we've been here. Me and my wife met here in San Antonio. She was going to a different church, but she was part of a female small group, part of Gateway, but going to a different church. I was with young adult men's one, and for the Spurs championship, we got together to watch the championship, and she fell in love.
How many other
spouses I'm sure that's how it went down.
I don't know.
Anybody else got married?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think anybody else had game. And so, actually, it's so funny. I met her there, but the Spurs won, and I left the party to go downtown to go honk the horn and stuff. And so,
we haven't had a chance to celebrate any of the Spurs.
No.
Spurs.
I mean, we're still pretty new here. We found tacos, but not the Spurs.
There you go. But originally, I'm from Hawaii.
Born and raised Hawaii? Or
complicated. So technically, I was born in California, but my mom, she moved when I was 1 month old or 2 months old to Hawaii. That's where she's originally from. That because my parents got a divorce. My biological parents got a divorce. Lived in Hawaii, and then my mom met my stepdad at 5, and so I don't know. I rarely say stepdad.
He's your dad.
Yeah, I don't know anything different. But he was in the military. And so luckily we stayed there till I was about 12, but then from Hawaii to New Jersey right afterwards.
There's a switch, right?
Yeah. I literally remember my mom, the first night we were like, oh, New Jersey, let's eat Italian food. And so I remember she's crying in her spaghetti the first night. Yeah. And I was like, man, this is going to be great, you know? And so, yeah, I went to school. I went to college out there at Rutgers University. I was going for civil engineering, which the Lord told me that wasn't for me through my grades.
He's so clear sometimes.
I ended up getting kicked
through like, you stink at this, maybe not your thing.
My 1.9 GPA is not cutting it, boss.
Yeah. Who knew a life of partying all the time and neglecting your education would get you kicked out? I mean,
I probably would have known that because I did it. But
So I've got one question, not just because of curiosity. Did you get blessed with one of the awesome Hawaiian names too, then, or not so much?
No.
Oh, you got cut short.
But their kids have really rad.
I mean, my middle name is Lukela, which is it stands for different things. I can't remember now. Yeah. That's how Hawaiian I am, I guess. But my mother, she named me that, or she wanted my initials to be her same initial. Which was cute whenever, before she got remarried. So all that changed. And it's like, okay, well, I'm left here in the dark. So, but yeah, no, I didn't get to, it's just Christopher, which on a job application for a long time, Christopher Reynolds was really fantastic.
Yeah. So then how did you transition from college, not going to be a civil engineer, into pastoring?
Got kicked out.
Literally got kicked out of school.
Yeah, literally got academically dismissed. Yeah.
Academically, wow.
Yeah, it was a great way for
it sounds like a really good entrepreneur. You're someday when you're like a multi-billionaire and you're like launching
dismissed
SpaceX things, you'd be like
my parents, whenever I actually went to Rutgers, they actually moved to San Antonio. From my my stepdad's first marriage. He had a daughter in San Angelo, so he wanted to be closer to her. So they were here. So obviously, you get kicked out. What do? You have to move back home. When you move back home with my mom and dad, they don't play games. My mom don't play. My dad don't play.
Yeah.
You're under a roof. You're going to church. And I was like, fine, whatever, go to church with them. And it was an older church north of San Antonio. I won't name any cities or names.
That's wisdom.
Yeah. North of San Antonio. And literally I was in this church, small church. It was average age was above 50, or you had a few people under 18. I was 20. So I was in this weird, I'm here. So I was like, hey, let me go hang out with the teenagers then, because at least I can be relevant with them somehow. And no joke, I think a week or two later from just going to hang out with them on a Wednesday night, youth pastor comes up to me and was like, hey, do you want to go to youth camp with us? I said, well, I'm not a teenager. I'm not going to, I'm not going to go to camp. What is this kumbaya stuff?
Fun and games until he offended you.
Yeah. And he goes, no, you want to be a leader? Which was very interesting looking back, because I was like, I barely even, had a relationship with the Lord. But anyway, I was like, sure. I mean, I've got nothing to do. When I got academically dismissed, kicked out, I felt like I lost my purpose, lost a lot of things, moving and all that. So I was like, I'll go, sure, whatnot. And I remember that first night, I'm watching these students respond to an altar call up front. And, I was raised in church, so I've seen this before. But I remember watching them and I was like, wow, that looks super cool. Good for them. Yeah. And then I had a little voice say, well, what about you? So I was like, okay. And so I just happened to go down to the altar and just, surrender, snot, cry, everything. I don't know if I fully knew what I was doing. I did, but I think it was more of a, gosh, I just had my world crumble, the last few years crumble, living in sin. And it was the moment of, all right, God, I'm at rock bottom. What now? And so I just remember crying. What was crazy is my dad he got suckered into it. He didn't even know, but he got suckered into being, one of the van drivers. And so he was there.
Oh,
he was there.
Wow, that's so cool.
So he got to watch this all happen.
He came up to the front, prayed for me, and to this day, my parents never. To this day, my parents never really said, "Hey, what did you do? Why you fell away? Like, tell us all their sin." Yeah. I think I remember my dad saying, "Hey, if you're forgiven by the Lord, I don't need to know." Yeah. And so it was a moment for me. I say that because I don't know if people are watching that you have a family member or even a kid that is going through rough patches. Yeah. And for me, my dad, of course, he spoke truth into me during that whole time. And of course, I didn't want to listen, but it was the fact that I knew that he was going to be there. And he was there for that time.
What an awesome experience for him to see too.
Yeah.
So you have this kept basically, we're hitting your testimony. This is where the Lord called you and where you
we have to make sure we figure out where chocolate.
Okay.
We'll get there.
It ties in. It ties in.
No, I don't even want to get there quite yet though.
It ties in.
Real quick brush over.
Come on, Joe.
This was a surprise, right? To your dad, you're saying they're like, well, I didn't know my son wasn't saved, type of thing, Yeah. And you said as soon as you showed up at home, your parents were about the business of getting you to church.
Yeah.
So what was your feelings towards the church and or God up until that point?
Honestly, hated God.
Really?
And I know this is a strong word. Yeah. When I was at Rutgers or in the party scene, what have you, I had moments of conviction, guilt. I would see, there was times I would see street preachers and they're talking about stuff and I'm like, oh, I know what they're talking about, but I'm not living it. There was times I would call my dad and be like, hey, what do you think about this, theology stuff? And he just was listening to me. But there was, again, I'm not going to say any names. There was a Christian organization that one night after just partying or whatever, I was like, you know what? I feel guilty. Let me go give this thing a try. It was like 9, 10 o'clock at night. I go give this thing a try, and I'm in like a small group, probably 5 guys, like a small group, and they're talking about the attributes of God, okay? And they're listing them. I'm like, cool. Then the leader goes, yeah, bless his heart, he was just trying. He goes, hey, let's go around the room and say which attributes that you have. And they come to me first. Mind you, I just came back from
on the spot
partying or whatever. And I'm like, I feel guilty. Let me try it. I chuckled and I said, I don't think I have many of them. And I chuckled with, in the sense of, hey, please, somebody please affirm me, encourage me, you know, and say, no, you're okay. You know, but they're like, okay, let's move on.
Oh, no.
That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But then it got to the leader. Again, he was trying. And he goes down the list. I got this one, 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 this one.
He's like, I'm pretty much God.
Yeah. I don't have this one. And I remember I used some explicit language, and I was like, are you kidding me? And I left. Yeah. And it was in that I grew up church, but this was kind of my out of the bubble first opportunity to really get something right. And I was like, you know what? If this is how Christians are, or this is the representation of God, I don't want anything to do with him.
Was it because you felt like you didn't measure up, or because like this person maybe was like thinking they were cooler than they really were, or like what part of it hit you?
I think is the authenticity.
You're like, there's nobody that has all of these attributes of God except for God.
Well, I not just that. I think you know, too many Christians are put up a facade of their life. I'm not saying you have to be vulnerable on everything about your life, but be real about who you are and how you're growing in Jesus. And to me, as a pastor or just someone that loves Jesus, that's my ultimate goal. I never want to portray someone other than who I am in Christ. I can't. I always joked around. I can't be the typical mode of what you see a pastor as. Like I just can't. It's just not me, you know. And you know, it's so funny when I got saved or rededicated my life, whatever you call it. That first year was the biggest struggle for me as a Christian, because I was looking at the culture that I was part of. Sure. And I was like, okay, I got to listen to this kind of music now. I got to know this kind of language. And it was frustrating, but you would appreciate this comment. I called my dad once and I said, Dad, I don't want to be a Christian anymore. I just want to love Jesus.
Yeah.
And he said, what? And I said this, Christians are lame. So I'm sorry I'm offending anybody, but I said Christians are lame. And he was like, okay, hold on. Talk me through this. And I was kind of just talking through, well, I don't listen to this kind of music. I can't. That's not who I am. I can't dress it this certain way. You know, I wear I wear the hat and I have the diamond earrings. I don't want to, you know, I felt like that was an identity for me that the Lord wasn't really telling me to change. Yeah. And so he told me, he's just like, no, you just keep being you. This is God created you. And so since then, for me, my identity has really been strong in the Lord and in the confidence that this is who he created me to be.
What a gift he gave you right off the bat, though. Yeah. Because that can be so many people's biggest stumbling block is trying to aspire to be something that they weren't created to be. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like especially right now, like the way that our culture is, like so many pastors or like people in ministry, worship artists, like all these different people are so elevated. Yep. And because now they're even like popular on social media, it can really make people have to look at them and be like, wait a minute, I'm not that. Like, I'm not this, I'm not that. Like, I don't dress like that. I don't look like that. I don't sound like that. I don't have this gifting. I don't have that gifting. And so I feel like even more than ever before, definitely more than when I was growing up in the church, it's like all of these things that you're supposed to be are in your face. Yeah. Like constantly you're inundated with even, what it's supposed to even locally, look like.
I mean, you guys are, I think it's unique. I haven't seen this much at other churches, but we have a pretty good teaching team at our church. You know, John teaches a portion, but Kyle teaches some. And then I teach some.
Love it.
And I always tell people, I can't do what Kyle does. I can't do what John does. I can only do what
you do.
and then vice versa, but we make such good unity with it.
It's so liberating. Today's not about my story, but that the elevation of a gift, right? I mean, pastoring is a gift amongst many. Whether or not it's better, worse, greater, grander, all that type of stuff is really to be decided. But because of the culture of Christianity that we're in, that's the only real gifting that gets a stage, right?
Yeah.
And stages in America are a big deal.
Yeah.
So you're placing somebody in a position where their gift is on display, whether you want it or not, people are putting you in a place. So I think we live in a country where individualism is celebrated. It can be a blessing and a curse. But for someone that knows right out the bat their identity, I think the two things I always say is one, getting to know the Lord, and then getting to know yourself. The gifts, talents that He's given you are probably the most liberating, freeing things this side of heaven. So that's cool that you had that. So
but we still didn't get to Chocolate Bear.
We're going right now. So
okay. I need to know. I'm like, you got to call him this now. That's why
I built it up earlier, but it's just kind of it's funny because I think I heard Chocolate Bear a half a dozen times before I ever saw a face before I met someone.
You know what's scary?
So there was a part. Yeah, go ahead.
My name has gone further than I think I have even gone. Yeah. And so I'll go to somewhere and they're like, hey, you're Chocolate Bear? I'm like, yeah. How do you know me? Oh, I'm like, it's terrifying. And you guys do what you guys do here. I'm impressed.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's fun. I crack behind the scenes. So this is partly confession to you.
Oh God,
of me just saying like, this is a grown man. I'm gonna have a hard time calling him Chocolate Bear.
Yeah.
But
that's a you thing, not a him thing.
Well, no. When I met you, I was like, oh, I get this makes sense because it's a way to soften. It's a way to soften the edges. So tell us the story. How did Chocolate Bear?
Yeah. So in that same camp where I got saved, before that moment, before the service started, there was a teenager. I thought teenager, 19 actually. Or in that 18, 19, sitting in the corner. And my personality, I love bringing people in. I don't like people sitting on the outskirts, And so I went to go talk to him. And I was like, hey, man. He's like, hey. I was like, hey, my name is. And he goes, no. I'm like, oh, my gosh. And I was like, okay. He goes, your name will forever be Chocolate Bear. Okay.
This is great. Now you have to call it.
Jesus renamed the disciples, right? So is that this moment?
It ties into it. I actually have never been in a situation where I felt so awkward. I'm pretty like, I can get out of any. I didn't know what to do because it's the first interaction.
He says no.
Your name forever be Chocolate Bear.
Yeah.
I just walked away. I'm not even joking. I walked away and I was like, well, all right.
Yeah.
Little did I know he was one of I guess transitioning from, just a student leader. One of my good friends actually now, because again, I was 20, he was 18, 19. And he was an influencer within the student ministry within that camp. By the end of the week, as big as I am, they were crowd surfing me throughout the whole worship.
Calling you Chocolate Bear?
Chocolate.
I wish I would have seen this.
Crazy. Just crazy moments. We go back home. The students, they know me as Chocolate Bear, so they're telling their parents. My pastor finds out. He's calling me Chocolate Bear. I go to Bible college because I felt like the Lord called me to Bible college. My roommate finds out.
Yeah.
That I was Chocolate Bear.
Yeah.
Calls me Chocolate Bear.
That's the beauty. So that's what you deserve it. You earned it because that's the beauty of a good nickname.
Yeah. Why has that never happened to me?
When it surpasses you, like I would be willing to bet. So we're outsiders. We're new to San Antonio, and I would say the average person refers to you.
Yeah. As Chocolate Bear. Yeah, for sure. You're okay.
I think I've met a couple of people that didn't know your name was Chris.
Yeah. to this day.
So that's a real nickname, right?
Yeah.
So
I love it.
And it's not like you were sitting sitting around your junior year in high school like I need a name that the ladies.
Yeah,
just,
I'm a little, now. Yeah.
You didn't force it. It's real.
Yeah, at that camp, again, that name was given to me before that night, which I surrendered my life to Jesus. So it's the Simon to Peter moment, Simon to Peter moment. And so I embraced that. I have not been able to. We tried when I first got on staff here at Gateway. We tried ditching it. John was like, "Hey, you're a pastor now. Let's try to get that respect," and so that. And I was like, "Hey, I'm all for it," but no one could stop.
No one can stop Chocolate Bear.
Do you ever feel like you have to put it down on forms for like an alias? Like, I
also known as.
I wonder if the cops really would want to know.
Former names.
That most people
Also known.
know me
When I
as.
signed cards, because occasionally I'd write cards to just leaders and people, I signed my name and then under it says AKA Chocolate Bear. Like I do that often, or in emails now it just says CB. But yeah,
So great.
I haven't been able to ditch it, but I love it in the introduction. It, for me, again, being student pastor for 8.5 years, it was the easiest way to connect with a student.
Sure.
Yeah, hey, I'm Chocolate Bear, and they're like, what?
You get the shy kid coming
Yeah.
up to you, and they're with their mom, and they're like, hey, this is little, and I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm Chocolate Bear. And they're like, what?
Like Pastor
I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right.
Like, it's disarming.
So
when
you're
we take
20.
Worthy to middle school next year, you need to be there.
Yeah.
Well, she already knows you're Chocolate Bear.
Yeah.
You're 20. You're 20 at this point.
Yes.
All right. So bring us up to speed. So we're bringing you in here today as a pastor from Gateway. You went from Rutgers getting the boot.
Yeah.
To being saved.
Yeah.
To Bible college somewhere.
So like, where does the
Check
where's the
Thursday.
call? Yeah.
That Thursday of that camp, a lot happened in that camp.
Yeah.
There's the night, the night of, hey, what's your purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I just, my world coming down. I find Jesus. No joke. The next day, I'm calling up, friends and even ex-girlfriend. Hey, we need to break up. God told me to break up. Bye. See you. I'm making these radical changes in my life. That Thursday, I'm like, okay, well, what is my purpose now? So I go to the altar again. Again, funny, I'm a leader. And this is why I always, anytime I do a camp or retreat, I always tell leaders, hey, this is just as much for you as it is for a student, because God spoke to me. Anyway, I'm like, all right, Lord, what's my purpose? I'm praying. Nothing. Friday in the morning, one of the other youth leaders from the other church comes up to me. Hey, I don't know who you are. I saw you praying last night. The Lord told me to go tell you something. I didn't. I'm so sorry. Let me tell you what it is. You're going to be an amazing youth pastor one day. And I was like, haha, okay, whatever.
You're like, thanks for telling me yesterday.
Yeah.
I thought God was ignoring me.
I still didn't believe it. I mean, the second person came up to me a few hours later from another church. Hey, I don't know who you are. Saw you praying last night. God told me to go and talk to you. He wanted me to tell you, you're going to be an amazing youth pastor one day. And I remember saying this. You thought I would have listened, but I said, you're an idiot. Because I was like, you don't know where I'm coming from.
No, you don't know me.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, whatever. A few hours later, the actual retreat camp speaker, came up to me and says, hey, I saw you praying. God told me to come talk to you. I was obviously on stage, so I couldn't. He told me to tell you, you're going to be an amazing pastor one day. And it was the third time that I said, all right, I get it, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like.
A life of celibacy, no wife.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Lord Jesus, are you sure?
I laugh at that because when she told me her dad was a pastor, that's how blind I was to the church and what it was. I was like, well, he must not be a very good one, right?
Yeah.
He's got kids.
I'm like, no, not a priest, dummy.
He messed up,
Remember, beautiful Catholic.
So that week, I'm like, again, I don't want to say names. I tell a youth pastor, hey, this is what I want to do. But I thought I would have got a lot more encouragement, affirmation, in, okay, man, this is awesome. You're going to be a youth pastor one day. it was met with a lot more jealousy and resistance.
There's a thing there, though, right? I mean, there's the
happens.
people that are closest to. I mean, this is Jesus, right, in his own hometown.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people closest to us sometimes aren't as.
Isn't that
big
the
a fan.
carpenter?
Yeah.
Isn't that Joseph Mary's son? And he had no honor in his own town. But yeah, and so I was like, okay, this is months later. I was like, man, if this is how church members or church ministry is, I don't want it.
Yeah.
So I ran from that too. And ran from that. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I ended up kind of leaving that church because it was just a tension of jealousy. And I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just trying to hang out with people.
Yeah.
And which is fine, I get the, when I say I get, I'm in the church world now. I get the tensions that can happen when someone is coming in new and passion and zeal. I don't know. I'm saying this. I'm trying to honor as best as I can.
There is, yeah. I mean, there's two different things. I mean, I remember some of our mentors and spiritual dads or whatever early on. Some that were patting on your head, telling you to take it easy. Others were throwing you out of the boat and saying, go. They embrace that barbaric freshness of your proximity to your relationship. And who you are in Christ is never going to be as pure as that day that He calls on you. Yeah. So there's all different types. So you're going through that.
So I run from that.
Yeah.
I go to a different church and met my mentor, who knew I was going to go into student ministry or wanted to go into student ministry. But now I'm like, maybe I'll be a teacher. Thought about that. I was like, if I just be a teacher, be around teenagers like that. Maybe that's the calling that God was trying to maybe direct me to. And so this guy, I'll say his name, Derek.
Because I have good things to say about Derek.
Yeah, actually,
Derek
must be a good guy.
Actually, Derek and I, our families are going to go vacation this year together.
Oh, I love that.
The first time we've ever done that, so it's going to be fun. He took me under his wing for 2 years without saying that this is discipleship or leadership training.
I love it.
And when I talk about I was always around him, he didn't know this at the time, but it was so funny. On my birthday, my 22nd birthday, I think, he accidentally, on purpose, but he didn't know it was my birthday, took me to a funeral that he was doing. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll go with you. And that whole time I'm learning from him, and we're in the car riding back. He goes, why does your phone keep blowing up? I said, oh, it's my birthday, people. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst person ever. He's like, why did you? Yeah, he was like, why did you come with me? And I said, man, I just wanted to learn and be around you. Yeah. And anyway, it's through him. He gave me, he gave me so many opportunities. I was around him when he did what I call out a relational ministry. He was just around people. He loves people still to this day. And I saw that it kind of rekindled a passion in me for people, for lost people, for discipleship. Mm-hmm. And he gave me my first opportunity to run a service, a youth service. He was like, all right, you run the service. I'm just going to show up to teach and we'll evaluate. And I was like, all right. And he gave me that. And then he gave me my first opportunity to teach, which was a horrible setup, by the way. We talk about this often. He said, let's tag team a message.
Oh, he left you, didn't he?
You do the front, I do the back, but you need to know what I'm teaching so that you know how to set up the front, for me, right before I go on stage, hey, you're doing the whole thing. And so I had my first opportunity to teach, which should have been a 30-minute message, ended up being like 11 because I was so nervous. Like,
One time Joe went up to give a message, and like Joe's a talker, right? Yeah. Like it's just a gifting he has. He straight up got up there, froze, said nothing, and walked off the stage.
Yeah, so I was
worship went on, and we were done.
Through my entry story when I realized it was out of order, right? Because I was at a place where it wasn't so much that I had to memorize it, but I needed to know the track that I was on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the middle of my story and I'm like, this isn't supposed to be happening yet. So it's like, I don't know where to go from it. And I just stare at everybody. You know how that feeling goes. Like, everybody knows. Everybody knows that you're off your line.
You didn't recover. He straight got off the stage, went outside.
I was shaking my fist
worship
at God.
went on, and it was over.
That was embarrassing. So anyways, he sets you up like this.
Yeah, and so it was just from, he wasn't like a, hey, let me tell you about what ministry is. He showed me what ministry was.
I think of Matt Schroeder when I think of him, like our early days. It was so much of like mine and his relationship. A good friend of mine that's a pastor now. And yeah, we
just hung out.
We spent every day together, and so many different things that, anyways,
And so I was like, okay, well, now I want to be a pastor again.
Yeah.
Because I saw that it could be done right. And I say right, I'm not saying there's whether it is right.
You saw a part
how you could relate to it.
Yeah. Again, when I talked about the identity kind of shift and me trying to struggle with that through the first, year, I saw, okay, man, I could do this and still be me, because I learned it from him. And so I was like, let's go to Bible college. Let's try that out.
So these are the early seeds that are planted in you, right? So you
I
have
love it.
your own childhood experience with God. You then have this college experience.
Yeah.
Now you have this woke experience, and everybody's telling you.
You said woke.
I know.
Come
but it's
on,
like,
babe.
Everybody's telling you.
I'm canceling you, babe. I'm canceling you.
Everybody's telling you you're going to be a pastor, and now you see something that you can write, your name alongside and say, I could do this.
Yeah.
How much of that shows up in who you are today as a pastor? Like, when I think of Jesus always telling us as far as returning back to our first love, our first callings, what it is that he put in us, do you feel like you get to do that?
What do you mean?
Well, today, right? So now you're how many years? So that's 22.
So that was 22. I went to Bible college for 1 year in person. And then I ended up getting a youth pastor job here at Gateway when I was 23. And so I finished college online.
Yeah.
And so since 23, so 9 years, I hit 10 years in August this year.
Yeah. So you hit your wagon. I should say hit your wagon, but you and John, you guys kind of are doing this thing together, right? Because how long has Gateway been around?
13.
13 years. So you're meeting him. I don't even know the story, but I'm guessing somewhere in almost house church type.
Yeah.
Right.
Anywhere, basically. It was like, hey, come to my house, come to my apartment. Hey, meet at Starbucks.
You didn't come into an established thing where they're like, here's a job description.
No.
So was like, you were a youth pastor, so was there like a few kids? Like, how did that even look then?
Interesting story. Again, I got so many stories. Hopefully this doesn't take long. But when I was at Bible college for a year, I was coming back for the summer, and my parents were on staff at Gateway as small group pastors. And I reached out to the youth pastor and I said, hey, I'm studying to go into student ministry. Can I come and hang out and just learn? And he's like, well, we have an internship. You want to do it? I was like, sure. So I do that for the summer. I was like, man, this is sweet. I pray and fast for a week. I felt something tugging. The Lord said, stay. And I was like, what? Because at the time, everyone back at Bible college, it was the best year of my life. Best friends still to this day from that 1 year. So I was like, I don't know if I should do that. Like, this is 99 times out of 100, I would have went back. But the one time that, the Lord was like, stay with no plan, decided to stay. And crazy story, it just didn't work out with the last youth pastor. So we kind of parted ways, and they asked me like, hey, you want to step in? And I was like, it's a little bit earlier than I thought I would, do. So there was an established, Velocity was established already, but obviously, the last, youth pastor, the last guy was, he was loved by his students. And so unfortunately students left, leaders left. And so, we got to a point, we got down to like about 20 kids, had some leaders that, I was intern, I was same level as them in the context of like leadership. And then now I'm stepping up. And so I don't know if that was a little tricky.
Similar thing happened to me at First Free. I was just a youth leader at the time. And then the next year came in as their intern and then got asked to be their pastor. And there's some transition there.
I don't think it was, I don't think it was anything towards me. I think you just got a different person leading the ship
Yeah.
a different way.
Yeah.
And so,
Just growing
yeah.
pains.
And so there was something established. And so we went from the movie theater with 20 something kids to where it's at now, which is awesome for me.
Yeah, I love
Anyway.
that.
But yeah,
I
10
love that
years.
you're still close with the people that you went to Bible college with. Now, you know Pastor Mario
Yeah.
at Gateway, that
Yeah.
we were next door neighbors, right?
Yeah.
At Bible college?
Mhm.
Okay.
So on staff back in the day when we were meeting in living rooms or whatever, it was like John, Mario, me, and my dad, and maybe one or two other or kids pastor and volunteer. And so we were small. So me and Mario got to know we were BFFs. We had some life struggles together, like
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
through just the pains of church planting. I mean,
Yeah.
of
Well,
adapting.
I love
this is
that.
where I want to build.
Yeah, we hung out with them all the time. They literally were right next door. So we would like
Yeah.
eat together and hang out because we were in this like kind of like an apartment complex
Yeah.
kind of thing. And they literally were right next to us.
So
Married house.
his apartment when we back in the day, his apartment was like a block from ours, and so we would always carpool together.
Oh,
Or
that's awesome.
I'm like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, you want to go to the movies? All right, sure. Like it was a good fun
That's
time.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so Sammy, like I said, this is your guys' time, but I want to build up Gateway a little bit from both of our experiences, right? So, Sammy,
Okay, now and be careful. Take example from how honorable
No, I will.
he's
No,
being. Joe always scares me.
well, I must have done something wrong at some point because I keep hearing that statement. I can't pinpoint a single time that I've ever said anything wrong.
That's hilarious.
No, what I was going to say though.
Does that make you insecure, babe? I'm
Sammy,
sorry.
Sammy grew up in the church. I have all of my first church experiences at the age of 20, but then really early off because of the work that we did. So we used to run a at-risk teen center, and with that became like we were a parachurch ministry. I think you guys have something similar to what ours was here that he'd be able to understand. What's that one?
Oh, the one there, Agora Ministries.
Agora.
You know
So
how like
similar-
it's probably connected with a lot of different churches, but it's like its own thing. That's kind of like
So
what we were doing.
within the first couple years of marriage and stuff like that, we never really had a church dedication, right? Like we had places that we were plugged into for a while, but we almost had to be friendly with all kinds of churches.
Yeah.
So
you
we were
get
really hopping around a lot.
You get
Yeah.
exposed to a lot of church life, and that just became a consistent in our life. It's what launched us into what we do through speaking at different churches and then conferences and all that type of stuff. So when we came here, totally different world for us, and getting plugged into a church was huge. Well, I would be the first to say that if you have a ton of church experience from kind of not necessarily a consumeristic standpoint, but like sometimes the only thing we got to experience in a church was those first impressions.
Yeah.
Or some of those.
Right, because we were just like involved.
Yeah.
Like everywhere we went,
Or
we were
some of those-
involved.
Or some of those behind the scenes portions where coming into Gateway, man, it seems super healthy. And when I say that, I know
There's people,
the
right?
flip side of it, people
there's
are
always
involved.
stuff. Yeah.
But the reason why I asked that question of how much of those early experiences got to be a part of shaping your position. Now you got to be a part of this church plant, right?
Yeah.
So you're one of the older tenured guys. You've got to give birth a little bit to some of those seeds that God planted in you because you got to be in there when there wasn't high stakes at first, And when I say that, I think about our first church experience. It was kind of this 900 person church that wasn't used to being a 900 person church. There used to be a much bigger church, and then that growth going back into kind of what the world calls mega churches.
Yeah.
That's a whole different position, because at that time it's like, we're looking for PhD level guys. So you're coming into a system, and that can be very different. And for the people that are just trying to go to church, experience church, there's a huge brushstroke on how to meet the needs of the body. So what part of you, like your DNA, how God's made you up, do you get to still be a part of every single day where you haven't felt like you've had to sell out to the,
Yeah, I'm not trying to, blow smoke, but John, incredible leader. I mean, I've been with him. I mean, we know each other very well. Been with him for 10 years. And from day one, not just visionary, 'cause I think pastors can be visionary all the time. I mean, we've got some of the greatest visionaries even in church world. But his love for people and his love for God's word.
You can see it.
Yeah,
You can see it.
and when you combine, it's the simplicity of that, just loving God and loving people. I mean, Jesus talked about that greatest commands, and just getting to that and letting that run your every motive. You make better decisions like that. And so for me, I'm the I, I guess I'm the product of being part of something early on that just stayed laser focused on what was most important. And it's still to this day, as we've grown larger and there's so many different things moving, that's our number one question all the time. And how do we honor the Lord? How do we elevate his word? And then how do we make disciples? How do we love people into being part of a kingdom family and then reproduce that? That's our, I mean,
Well, this is your time.
yeah,
This is your time to break, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you in here, was because I have no idea where these things will be archived and who watches them later down the road. But in our world of a sphere of influence and people that are tuning into us, some of them are pastors, some of them
yeah,
are church leaders and whatnot. So I wanted to touch this a little bit, even from my own side, because it can be a topic that's tough for some.
yeah,
Like I have a lot of pastor friends, and including myself, where you can get to that place where you do just buy in.
yeah,
I remember going from really, really prayerful meetings to very pragmatic meetings.
yeah,
Like I don't care so much about what happened last night, how many people showed up.
yeah,
So you said something really key there, and that is staying faithful and focused to the original vision.
yeah,
Right. And that's why I even said what I said to you, as far as like those first seeds that God planted in you, like why he called you, what place you, that genealogy
yeah,
of who Chris is. How does that show up yet today? And how do you protect yourself so that you stay?
yeah.
Like that's the
the biggest
very,
thing.
you guys, because as a person coming in, you can see a blessing and an anointing on this church. And there's a lot of churches in San Antonio. I can't speak for all of them, but as we go there, like I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is actually says a lot, because I feel like we've struggled a lot with church. I think just because of the nature of being behind the scenes
Yeah.
in several places, and because of the nature of the work that we do, like there just can be a lot,
Yeah.
right? And so probably even some wounding,
Yeah.
right? And so for us, like when we came here, like we have really good friends here that are church planters. And initially when we came, we were thinking that we were going to end up just doing this kind of house church thing with them, and really felt like God
We
was
didn't
leading
think that.
us. Well, there was parts of us
Sure we
that resonated with. There was parts of us where we were like, this kind of fits with our DNA, but we also were having to consider, we have Ben and Callista
Yeah.
nearby, and now we have, just kids at different ages, and like, what is the right move, the best fit for the family as a whole, maybe not just what makes sense for us. And so, we knew Mario,
Yeah.
who's obviously a pastor at Gateway. And so he was like, yeah, come check it out. And so for me, and, I know for Joe too, but I won't speak for Joe, it's actually been like a very like healing place.
Yeah.
Because I think, John, like, I can see what you say. Like he's an incredible leader. Like you can see, like, I love seeing him outside greeting people.
Yeah.
And I love seeing him and his wife standing together worshiping. And I love seeing him share his stage. I'm saying that with quotation marks for anyone that's listening.
Yeah.
His stage with other pastors. Like it's just been really, really beautiful for me to just feel. And also, like, one thing that's been really cool is we've met so many awesome people that, and not even at Gateway, that were like, oh, you go to Gateway too. Like it's just been so cool.
Yeah.
Like it's just like you can see that and of course, right? Like any place, there's stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because anytime there's humans involved, there's stuff.
Yeah.
But like by and large, like what we've seen is like, wow, like we're really excited to be a part of
Yeah.
this place, and like just see that there's people that genuinely
Yeah.
care about
We
each
feel the
other.
same way.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's
was just
seen.
in a meeting before coming here, of guys, we've been part of this church for a long time, and we're still like, oh my gosh, we're doing this. Like this, we literally said that. That was the first thing we opened up with this meeting. We're like, I can't believe we're getting to do this,
Mhm.
But going back to, what you were saying, like, for me personally, like kind of how I told you early on, I learned my identity and I wouldn't now, once I discovered that, there's no wavering. I think for me, if I'm looking at how that relates to Gateway Fellowship, what I see is, and we just know who we are, and we're not gonna shift just because. I mean, obviously systems change, and
Mhm.
what we do as you grow, you got to adapt to
Mhm.
different levels of leadership, all that stuff. But we know who we are. We know what we want to do, and we're pretty set on that. And it's unfortunately, it's also saying no to a lot of things.
Mhm.
There's a lot of great things churches can do.
Mhm.
A lot. I mean, I think earlier church days, I say earlier for me, it was all program
Mhm.
based, and you can do a lot of different
So
things.
much.
And you
Too much
can,
sometimes.
yeah, and you can reach people. I mean, for sure, you can reach them through a softball club or knitting club. I don't
A
know.
knitting club.
Well,
Who
the
knits?
pressure of the church today, and this is my personal experience, different, especially because of having a lot of worldviews outside of America experience of church. We have the burden as church leaders to create the time and the meetings and the spaces to be very evangelistic centric. Like,
Hmm.
this is where people are leaving and inviting their friends to come in. So we hope that they hear,
Yeah.
a salvation message or whatever, which is not necessarily common everywhere else. We're
Mhm.
typically inside the building. It's assumed that everyone's saved and they're there for being equipped and ready to be
Yeah.
sent
Like
out.
like our
And
church
the
in
work
Haiti,
throughout
for
the week.
example.
My
Mhm.
parents.
So
too,
programs
they're
can
in
feel
Asia,
like
yeah.
that's the way.
Mhm.
That's the way to, the programs is
Yeah.
like that's how we bring people
Get
to the
'em in.
Lord.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Mhm.
And anyway, so I mean, we know who we are. We know where the Lord has called us in our specific vision, and we just continue on to that. I mean, we could say yes to things. We could. I mean, it's not going to like end the world, but we know that if you start adding on, it's kind of like any good restaurant. If you go to any good fancy restaurant, their menu is so small.
Yes.
They know what they do well. Chick-fil-A. I mean,
It's
I'll
not
say that
15 pages of
they know
everything.
what they do well, and
Mhm.
they just stay focused on
For
that.
sure.
The ones that are usually trying to go broad scope is just convoluting what they do well.
Mhm.
And so, and
I
I,
love that. That's a good
and
way
so
to put
that's how we look at it. We don't want to be a giant menu,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term.
That's why those tacos are so good that we had last night. It's
Yeah.
like they got a small menu. It's
They're
like
like, this is what we
tacos
got,
or
yeah.
not tacos,
Well,
and they were so good.
We're
I
going to
love
be
that.
respectful on time, but one of the things I want to plug us in, because I think everybody's just going to have to deal with the fact that you're going to be a part 2 guy, and we're going to have to bring you back in. Because we're in this era, whether it's seasonal, whether it's part of the church future. I don't want to make more of the moment when you guys took stage and said, "Hey, we're looking at expanding our services and we're going to online."
Yeah.
For me, that's partly why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Church, the way church can be done, whether it's from learning, being equipped, whether it's just listening to somebody that's got, your style or whatever. I wanted to edify what you guys have going on in-house, which most of our listeners aren't probably coming from San Antonio, so they can't come there, but they can be a part of the teaching and the vision and stuff like that online. So why don't you just share with me real quick, like, what is it, just a thing, right? Because I would like to believe that it wasn't just a thing. Like, you guys felt like there was a reason.
I would say before COVID, it was just a thing.
Sure.
I think every church did some kind of streaming, for whatever purpose, whatever their motive was, what have you. Online, our online platform church, actually calling it a campus, was through really just burden. We realized there are people who are still uncomfortable coming. There are people who may have never even heard about our church. And what we've had before when it comes to just live streaming, one of my friends said, "Man, we just feel like a fly on the wall." You know, that's a tough language when you call people church family,
Yeah.
and they feel like a fly on the wall. And so I'm like, it was again birthed through John's real heart and passion, and then me having conversations with people. The idea that I was going to be the one to lead the way was probably not ideal in his mind, because like you're the executive pastor and you can't do both. But I was like, man, this is God's vision, and I can make it work with both. But it was really just thinking about people. Again, loving the Lord, honor him in everything we do, but loving people. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, given our circumstances, but if we go to some kind of normal or whatever, there's still going to be people at home
Yeah.
that need love and care. And whether that be tuning in online where we pray for them live and people are surrendering their life in different countries, crazy things are happening. Or if it's hey, you guys are looking for a church, you want to see what it's all about.
Yeah.
Hey, let's check this out. Man, I do feel connected. Maybe I'll go check it out. It could be an entry point.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so true, actually. So some of our best friends, I'm not going to name any names in case anybody doesn't know quite yet, but some of our best friends that live in Nebraska are actually moving to San Antonio. We're super stoked. But one of the things that she's been doing is going to online church around the area, just trying to figure out like, hey, like what's kind of going on. So that's a really solid point. Like if you're, and especially like even people like I think about like you and your kind of moments of all of your life crumbling around college time, or I even think of myself in my, late teenage years. I probably would have been more apt to finding something online than I would have to show up at a church.
Yeah.
Like that would have felt safer.
That's
for me.
actually the pre before anyone shows up now. We're noticing it used to be the website. People used to, before they go to church, check out the website, see who it is. But now you can get a good website for anything, and so now,
static too,
and now people are checking out social medias. And they're like, well, anyone can have a really good social media. Hey, let's see the service.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, no, I think
great.
it's spot on. I think it's timely. I think it's one of many things that have come out of COVID that I think God is using. And for me, my first experiences with the church, as far as ministering, was to shut-ins, right? So that is something that is
him and my dad used to go
like
and
nobody
take
even
communion to the old people.
nobody even knows that ministry is anymore. But it's like any good established church has a certain amount of people that just can't make it. Whether it's because they're old now, they're in a nursing home, or they're sick, or you've got guys, especially in San Antonio, that are getting deployed and they're in different places. And we have set up the church in a way where it can feel like a convenience store. There's one on every block and you can go. But like you become connected with what seems to be like a gateway family.
Well, think about
this is a way where that's not so scary.
Well, and think about too, like, had there been something like this available to us when we were living in Haiti,
that's exactly
like when we were in
about.
Haiti, we were a part of a church family in Haiti, but half the time you couldn't get to church because of something going on in the country or, just the nature of being there. And we felt very alone, very, very alone. And I think it would have been amazing to be able to have something like that where not only are you just watching it, but like you said, like you're not just a fly on the wall. You're not just watching, like somebody's literally there to like extend a hand to you. Like that would have been really huge for us. So I'm sure, other people that are in missions even.
And we know, and I say this, we know that this is an entry point. And so whether it be coming in person or we're working behind the scenes right now of trying to do just online small groups for people who are in different places. Yes, we know community in person. Scripture talks about a lot of one another's. It's hard to do that one another if you're not in person, but some don't have that, and so we're trying to develop even that. What does a online small group look like for those who are in different states? We've got people in different countries that are tuning in.
I love
Well,
it.
Well,
and I think about even people like, when we first adopted Gospel and Worthy, Joe was a pastor at the time, and I didn't probably really go to church much for like a year because we had all these things going on where, and our experience with adoption has been fairly seamless, right? But like your kids, when they first come home, like bonding and attachment is so huge. So like the last thing that you really want to do is take them and be constantly introducing them to people. And I know so many people in that adoption community in that same place where they can't necessarily go and be connected in their body, or they have situations where you can't take their kid, like they can't actually go into a service with them because maybe their kiddo has special needs and they can't actually leave them in, a children's program, or they would be a disruption in a service. You know what I mean? So I just think there's so many things you probably don't even necessarily realize because it's not your personal experience that it could be so huge to connect with. And like when you're saying, online small groups, I think of this like just because I'm connected with moms, like there's a lot of moms that cannot get away. You know, like you have a wife. 3 little ones, like you can't necessarily always make connections. And so
People
I think anytime you're giving people an on-ramp, like
no, it
huge.
is the reach is, I mean, the internet, all that type of stuff has given God the ability. Like you said, somebody in Bangladesh has given their life to the Lord from hearing a message in San Antonio, Texas.
It's beautiful.
Who wouldn't want to be behind that? Who wouldn't want, that's just exciting stuff. The practical part of it, like I said, is it just seems to be, like I said, I could put in my own 2 cents on it, but it seems to be one of the beautiful gifts that have come out of this season where the church has to say, okay, what if we can't return back to this? We have no idea how many pandemics are up and coming and coming down the pipeline. So get good at it now. I'm a huge fan. We'll be cheering you on. And how do people like even get plugged in? Like what does church online look like for you guys if they wanted to hear from?
Like to show up and watch, you can go into the website for ours, mygateway.tv, and I think there's a drop down for watch. Our Facebook, our Gateway Fellowship Church Facebook. We go live there. So many different platforms. It's insane, but those are the 2 best, I think. Or I think we have a YouTube.
Yes, you do.
I know that's I watched.
That's how we watched on Sunday. Yes, you have a YouTube.
Well, we did that because again, we learned things through COVID. But I remember, so my youngest son was born during COVID season in March. Actually, birthday's coming up. I wanted to watch the service, but it was only streaming on Facebook. I don't have an Apple TV. I had a Roku TV, which you can get the YouTube app. So I was like, hey, let's stream on YouTube so I can watch it on TV versus my phone.
Love it.
And that was just a simple way to.
But if people want to really engage, what is the best way for them? Like if somebody's at home and they cannot get out and they're like, I actually need prayer, or I want to be more than a fly on the wall or a person just watching.
Email GFC online at mygateway.tv. Our awesome assistant who, again, if you in San Antonio, he's actually our city's weatherman.
Love it, by the way.
And he monitors that email. He's working on even volunteer opportunities. We started very basic to see what this could be. And after week 2, we're like, oh my goodness, this could be bigger than we thought. And so he worked on getting some volunteer opportunities to serve. Prayer requests, all that usually comes through that email too. So
I love it. I would totally be all about starting like a small group, an online small group, like with ladies or something,
Well, that's
I would be all into it because I'm
with us,
like, I'm already in the like social media, like it's easy for me to do that stuff. So
our world is,
hit me up if you need help with that.
I don't know everybody else's. I don't know everybody else's life, but I know ours, and it is far reaching. Like we've got people, so it'd be actually kind of fun to know that there's online, because there's some of your favorite people may not live in your hometown, and it'd be great people to stay plugged with. So to have small groups as a part of what this online experience is, that kind of connects it together. Because for us, I think the large group gathering is always going to be the most amazing thing, but we know that the real work sometimes happens in those small group settings. That's where people can be vulnerable, get that one-on-one prayer, share what's going on in their life.
I love it.
So what do you think, babe? Should we bring Chris back for a part 2?
I think we should.
We've got he's
worthy enough.
Now that we've gotten through the rough patch of introductions, because like I said, guys, this was our introduction.
Chocolate Bear.
This was our introduction.
Are you going to call him
each
Chocolate
other.
Bear now that you know?
I'll
CB,
bust it out every now and then
Chris,
just to make him
There was
him feel loved.
You're the far end of I can't do it, and I've had grown men just make up Sugar Bear, and I'm like,
it's not sugar.
That's uncomfortable for me. Sure.
When I say, you can ask anybody. I'm not a tough guy, anything like that. It's just it.
What?
Well, I mean, I
What do
am,
you
but
mean?
I'm not. I'm
Oh,
He's
soft.
not a
I'm,
tough guy.
I'm
He's
soft.
like,
I'm
just
soft and
busting out of my
sensitive. I'm
shirt.
soft and sensitive. I'm not saying I'm like,
Okay, I see what you
I'm not
mean.
playing like Eric. I never called.
Yeah,
you
like he's
a
gooey on the
chocolate bear.
inside is what
I'm
you
not
mean.
saying that. It's
You're a
just-
tough guy on the outside, gooey on the inside.
I wanted to hear the story fresh from him because I had
It
to
is
believe
what it is,
I had to
yeah.
believe that somebody called it out of him because, like I said,
Someone spoke it in.
being like, man, I want everybody to call me chocolate bear.
That would change the game. I don't know.
So now you
I would
might be
not.
able to.
Yeah, I would not invite myself back on a podcast if that was the case.
Oh man, well we love you. We'll be praying for you, and the online church gig, slamming people that are here in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Go wherever you're feeling loved and wherever you know God's presence is. But for those that are wondering and looking for a place to check out, we certainly will tell you the Gateway's a great spot for us.
Yeah, we're loving it.
I'm glad you guys are here.